thanks for having us here. We're going to go through a couple of short presentations. Colleen's going to kick it off, and then Rob, and then we've got some questions, but we're also, if you guys have some, let's open it up. Colleen?
Okay. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Katie. And thank all of you for joining us today. I'm going to give you an overview of TrackPatch products and our technology. Our TrackPatch knee system has been fully commercialized for a while now. And one of the things that really distinguishes our TrackPatch knee system is the way that it is applied to a patient. It's a patch-based system. It's applied directly to the patient's skin. And the sensors snap into the patch and the adhesive device. And there's no need for cameras or for braces or straps. So it's very easy for patients to use, which drives a high level of patient compliance. The device tracks clinically relevant data. It provides alerts and notifications to physicians so they can get ahead of issues and really intervene early if needed. It also has a patient app that really lets the patient become engaged in their own recovery. It can result in some meaningful cost savings, and all of those things together really drive improved outcomes and increased patient satisfaction. It can be used with any implant, and the TrackPatch product includes two devices. One's placed above the knee, one's placed below the knee, a patient app, and a healthcare provider app, as well as a web portal. The TrackPatch solution really provides benefits for all the participants in the healthcare ecosystem. It provides benefits to the physicians, to the providers such as hospitals and payers and patients. And specifically what the device monitors, both pre-op and post-op, are things like ambulation, range of motion, exercise compliance, temperature at the wound site, and also does support telehealth and those type of activities. And we can exchange wound photos between patients and physicians, as well as pain scores and some other communication features. So the combination of the data that we collect during the episode of care, which is both pre and post-op, along with the data that we collect during the registration process, which is more about the patient, the physician, the facility, the implant, and the type of surgery. Is it robotic assisted or not? When we combine all this data, that's really what leads to our analytics platform and allows us to develop the algorithms and AI to further enhance the treatment of patients during these type of pathologies. We designed TrackPatch to really address some of the key needs in the orthopedic space, which is increasing costs. We feel TrackPatch can help lower costs during an episode of care. Rising demand. I'm not sure we're going to have enough orthopedic surgeons to really service all of the patients. And also historically we've had a lack of objective data. So that, and of course, it supports the move towards remote monitoring and telehealth. The platform applications really are providing benefits across the spectrum of everyone who participates in the healthcare ecosystem. And really, we think the data is what's critical to all of these participants. So one of the things we do is we've done some studies, and what we've found is that TrackPatch users have outpaced non-TrackPatch users in terms of regaining greater flexion and extension in terms of range of motion sooner. And the other thing we've learned, which we didn't really know this until we were monitoring patients, is that improvements continue beyond the 4 to 6 week period in a patient's activity levels and range of motion. The other thing that we've been very focused on is the patient experience. So through our apps, and then both at the beginning of a episode of care and at the end of an episode of care, we survey patients. And so what we found that patient satisfaction, compliance, and motivation continue to be very high. And we believe that in order for that to be the case, it's got to be easy to use, got to provide benefits to the patient. And we get consistent feedback from patients that, if they had their other knee done, they'd want to have a track patch device. Our philosophy when it comes to the data usage is one of the data that is generated during the care management, so both pre and post-op, the episode of care, is really valuable and fed into what we think the next phase is a retrospective analysis of that data, where we can then move into developing predictive models and tools, recovery curves that we then feed back into the episode of care to really improve the care that's given to patients during this, pre and post-op period. We feel there's a data opportunity here as well. Track Patch collects a lot of data. It's got an extensive data dictionary, but we also are incorporating data from other sources, such as electronic health records, and working with others in the industry that have other data available, whether it's through phones or watches or those types of things. So we believe that as we collect more and more data sets, that data will be very valuable and useful to others, such as payers, providers, researchers, and even industry partners. And then these next few slides I'm just going to go through quickly. It gives some more information about what we collect about patients, what we collect from a biomechanical perspective. We've got a unique and very accurate way of calibrating the devices to patients. Patients vary in terms of size and BMIs, and so you really got to take those things into consideration. And then finally, other data that relates to the surgery itself. This slide depicts the screenshots on certain of the items we monitor, such as range of motion, steps, exercise compliance, and temperature at the wound site. And it's really the trends that are most important here. So, our software and algorithms combine these trends to create notifications to caregivers and physicians that there's something going on with a particular patient they need to pay attention to. So that's really what lets us create the alerts and lets surgeons get ahead of issues. Then finally, I'm going to share with you a little bit of our product roadmap. We're big believers in patient monitoring. Knee was the first product for us, but in the coming quarters, we have a product coming out that's going to focus primarily on ACL initially, but we're looking at various sports medicine pathologies. We've got two devices that are, instead of being joint-centric, are more body-centric, one of them being core and the other one being the spine device that we're really excited about. And then we have a device that's focused on hip type of pathologies and eventually shoulder. So, all of these combined will create an entire platform of products for us to really monitor most musculoskeletal procedures, and we think really advance the standard of care. Thank you.
That's me. Can you hear me all right? Thumbs up. Excellent. It's hot up here, let me just tell you that. I know it's probably hot down there as well. A couple of things. I think this is an amazing exciting time in healthcare, and orthopedics in particular. If you believe the story around the power of data, data collection, data analysis, model building for the purposes of clinical insight, I think we're going to see some amazing discovery over the next 5 years. I'm convinced of it. I've got slides sort of showing you the Zimmer Biomet journey around what we believe in data collection and analysis. So this is the typical patient journey. If you've been in orthopedics, you know this. Right? We believe this fundamental problem we're solving for us, we started 6 years ago, and that was, this was a very analog experience, right? Patients would go to something called Joint Camp. They would get a binder full of material telling them how to prepare for and recover after surgery. Their interaction with their clinicians was very sporadic. It was intermittent in nature, which led to fear and anxiety in patients. This was a suboptimal experience. So for us, that sort of foundation was creating a digital platform that would convert that analog experience to a digital experience. We call that My Mobility with Apple Watch. That allows patients to get all of their content digitally on their mobile device. We also have a companion watch that goes alongside of that. So we tell the patients, the provider, through us, tells the patient when to stop their anticoagulants before surgery so they're notified at the right time, when to do the pre-surgical scrub. We give them exercise content to do pre- and post-operatively. What we found with that is this was also an amazing opportunity for us to collect data. Collect data on patients. How are they doing their prehab? Are they doing their education content? Are they doing their exercise content? How quickly are they returning to function after they've had their surgery? So that data collection opportunity was pretty amazing. And then that next part of our transformation journey was starting to connect out a digital ecosystem, right? This ability now to take the data, the foundational data collected from the patient, and start to connect that with intraoperative data. We thought that was a fascinating thing for us, right, to start to do. I come from a world of pediatric heart disease. That was my background. So coming to orthopedics, I was really amazed that there's still these debates going on in orthopedics. When is the right time to do knee replacement? Is it a total knee or a partial knee? Are you using cement or cementless? Are you doing cruciate retaining or posterior stabilized? All these debates were still going on in orthopedics. And I think that we'll solve some of this through data collection and analysis. So on the bookends of what we do, we have this digital experience called My Mobility with Apple Watch, helps the patients prepare for and recover from surgery. But now with the advent of robotics and our connection when we launched ROSA into the operating room, we now have this ability to collect data intraoperatively. So the data that is collected, all those data points that are collected during the surgery, we now collect. We put that inside the platform, and now surgeons can now start to create their own insights around what I did intraoperatively and how quickly that patient is starting to recover. So that's sort of the first step in our evolution. And then this past spring, we launched Persona IQ, the world's first smart implant. So we put a battery and sensors inside the tibial extension of the implant. So now we get this opportunity for really high fidelity data collection from the patient for a longer period of time. So up to 10 years, we'll get some insights into how that patient's moving, perhaps get earlier recognition when things are going wrong. And that's the data ecosystem that we've started today. So this is how we sort of view the world. We've developed a platform, an AI platform. We have a group of data scientists that have done this, and they've created an environment that runs models, and that models is infinite, or those models are infinitely scalable. We view the data inputs from the devices that you can see, right? My Mobility with Apple Watch, this ability to collect movement data from their wearable devices, from their phone, this ability to collect data off of smart implants, really high fidelity data that the patient gives off using the implant, and then robotics data. What that surgeon did intraoperatively, collect that data, goes into a model, and we believe then the insight derived from that is a function back out to that same ecosystem, right? Data in, analyzed, models built, and then AI as a product going back into either surgical planning, directly into robotics, perhaps into My Mobility as well, to alert patients, perhaps of something if they're off course. This is just a graphic of data collection today. So I had the team put this together for me. It's representative of all the data that's collected today, just with mymobility, right? This is representative of all of the data points on a daily basis. It's a massive amount of data that is collected on a daily basis from patients around the world. We're in 15 countries with this product now. So when you start to think about how we're creating AI and avoiding bias in AI, we have a good representative of countries around the world and different populations inside the models. This is how we think about what we're doing with data collection and analysis. This is sort of our evolution of the story. We start with reporting, right? We've already done that. We've collected data from the robot, again, what the surgeon does intraoperatively, show them that data next to functional data. How was that patient? How quickly did that patient get back to the preoperative step count? We also have gait quality metrics, right? Not just step count, but gait quality, asymmetry, double limb support time. All of that data is collected. The surgeon can start to analyze that on their own. And then we get finally to prediction and recommendations, right? Eventually, the AI models get to prediction. Obviously, an old a slide that says future concepts. We did it. We launched in AAOS this year, we launched our first predictive product. So this model is up and running. It's running inside of mymobility. It looks at the patient's walking speed, and we can now predict between day 15 and day 40 if that patient is going to be in the lower 15th percentile of their cohort. So they're assigned a cohort based on age, BMI, postoperative day, walking speed preoperatively. They're assigned a cohort postoperatively between day 15 and day 40 on a daily basis. We can notify the provider team if that patient is predicted to have a low gait speed at day 90. The idea is that they can intervene earlier. This just launched, like I said, in the spring. We just had a nice testimonial from a surgeon come back to us saying they had a patient that they asked to come back in because we alerted them that that patient was going to be predicted to be in the lower 15th percentile of their cohort at 90 days. Intervened earlier, changed up a little bit of the routine. I don't know what the outcome is yet, but they were alerted earlier, so the model's working. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think you need it.
I think so. We're just going to back up so we're on. So you don't forget who we are. There we go. So thank you for both the presentations. Just so we get a sense from the audience, I'm going to ask a question around the devices. So for your device, as I understand, the patient gets like a box or something. It's got the instructions, put the stickers on, that kind of thing, right?
Yes, yes.
And
that's done pre-op.
is that done from the surgeon?
Yeah, it'll be done at the clinic, by the surgeon's team, or in some cases, it's actually done at the hospital.
Okay, great. And also for the Apple Watch, get a free Apple Watch? Is that how it works?
Not quite.
No.
So right now it is available, like the content is available on iOS and Android, right?
Okay.
Both those platforms we fully support. We do have fulfillment with Watch, so the patient can elect to get Watch as well, but it's not mandatory, right? We can get all of the data collected in HealthKit is available off of the phone. The Watch gives you a little bit better, gives you the double limb support time as opposed to the other HealthKit data.
Yeah, I was interested in that. So I could just keep it in my pocket.
Yep, pocket, yeah.
And it'll get a good result just from the inertial sensors of the iPhone or Android. That's great. Yeah, that means like 98% of the world between those two. Although not my father, who's still on a StarTAC, I think it is. It's like one of those old flip phones.
Yeah, I think that the key here is to reduce complexity, right?
Yeah.
I think when you're engaging with patients, or even providers for that matter, it has to be simple. You have to develop systems that people will adopt, specifically patients. They have to have a simple solution.
Perfect. And in both of your systems, you're collecting data, and you had a nice slide kind of detailing what you're collecting. I'd love to hear, is it similar? Because, I mean, your sensors are giving off X, Y, Z, inertia. They're giving off much more advanced things. How do you interpolate that into things us humans can understand?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of data collected is just, huge. And, because our devices are streaming data, every 60 seconds. But nobody can deal with that data, right? So we have to have an analytics platform that interprets that and presents it in a way that is actionable. And, I'm a big believer that there has to be benefits for the patient as well, or they're not going to be compliant and use the devices. So between, selecting data that's reported to the patient that helps motivate them, and then presenting data to the surgeon and alerts to the surgeon that helps them intervene if necessary earlier is really what it's all about.
Great. And similar, I guess, what kind of things are you typically looking for? Do you look at things like fall? Are you monitoring fall?
We're not actively monitoring falls today. Falls detection is a part of iOS, right? And with some parts of Watch,
Great.
but we don't market or do anything with falls detection or prevention.
Great. And I guess for your system, you're using the basic inertial sensors that are in these devices. How did you develop the sensors that you're using in your devices today?
Well, we started down this road in 2015, so we've been working on it a long time. And, we found through our research that we needed two devices, one below and one above the knee, in order to get the precise measurements we were looking for in range of motion. The devices know where they are in space, and they communicate with each other and then communicate with the patient's phone. So, we really felt it was important to have a joint-centric device that was very accurate in its measurements. It measures step count off of leg swing, and so it is, quite accurate.
Fantastic. And then when we look at the insights that you're gathering and the leverage of artificial intelligence, I noticed you mentioned some work you've done with Watson.
We have done work with Watson, really looking, they first started helping us validate the data that was streaming off of our devices. Okay. And then we did a huge study of 40,000 needs to really start to understand where the costs associated with knee replacements are and what could we help prevent. Like you could help prevent a manipulation under anesthesia or stiff knee by reporting, patients that aren't compliant with their exercise or, regaining range of motion. So, and then the last thing we did was an analysis of the marketability of the data and how we would need to combine it with other types of data that really isn't native to track patch.
Fantastic. And you guys, I imagine you have your own team. Help me understand how Zimmer Biomet's coordinating their AI development. What technologies, people are you guys using?
So we have a team of data scientists based out of the UK. That's where they report to me. They sit in the UK. And then we developed an environment, as I've described, where we can start to ingest data from these multiple sources, including robotics and now smart implants. Right? We now have this ability to collect data on a daily basis for a very long period of time. We don't have that many patients on the platform today.
Sure.
On the, I should say that just the smart implant platform. But we will, and we'll have data collected for a very long period of time. It'll be very interesting to see what comes from that.
Oh, agreed. So do you see the ability for your company to translate that data into better insights for better implants?
That's a great question. I believe that's probably true. I think I'm a clinician. I think often clinically first. So I think of insights powering clinical insights. How do we get better at how do we tackle the 20 to 25% of the patients who are dissatisfied with their knee replacement? That seems high to me for an elective procedure that typically has good results. How do we get better at that? So I think looking at that, understanding, again, the debate that's gone on in orthopedics for a very long time, I think we're going to get some discovery around this. I firmly believe it. Yeah. But I think it's obvious around the implant as well, right? I think that's true.
No, absolutely. Is there anything you've seen in the little bit of data that you've gotten so far on the implantable? Is there any like aha that has come about?
Yeah, nothing we're talking a ton about yet, but I think we're seeing some really interesting relationship to recovery curves. That's probably the first step here is understanding recovery curves. The number one unmet need for patients through our surveying is they want to know if they're on or off track. They have no idea today, right? They're an N of one. They're on their own. They've had their knee replaced. They don't know on post-op week 3 whether should I be moving more, should I be moving less? Is this pain normal? Is it not normal? You can reach out to your surgical team, but for the most part, they're on their own. And that was the top unmet need is tell me if I'm on or off track. Am I doing the right things in my recovery? And I think if we can start to give them that information, just recovery curves alone, and tell them you're doing just fine. Don't worry so much.
I bet. I think every patient needs a little bit of a confirmation that they're doing good. How about you at Track Patch, Colleen? Are you guys seeing something similar with the
Yeah,
data?
I mean, I think that, historically patients just, get a pamphlet or, some type of handout that tells them to do these exercises, and yet they have nothing to really engage with. So I think having the patient, see how they're doing and versus the goals their surgeon has set for them, and really, being able to follow an avatar that's showing them how to do a correct exercise, which is the other problem, right? Patients think if they move their knee or their leg 2 inches, they've done an exercise. Well, not really, right? So I think that's, giving patients the information and the feedback that lets them do an appropriately formed exercise is important. And then, of course, how they're doing versus, their peers that have had knee replacements is I think, a really good piece of data.
And you had a few points about where else you're going, what other parts of the body. I'd love to understand a little bit more about the sports med side you mentioned, and then
Yep.
what's after that.
So, we've had, working with physicians for the, several years we've been involved in this, has led us, to really give some attention to ACL. It's basically the same hardware device with different software and firmware. And, patients are a younger population, definitely, and really motivated to get back to full activity. So, again, this really is something we feel has great patient really benefits and really engages them. And then beyond ACL, we're really excited about our spine product. And that product actually, it can, with one device on the chest, it measures, posture in the coronal and sagittal planes. It does a lot of measurements related to gait, step speed, step cadence. We do have an algorithm that predicts the risk of falling. It's not meant to detect falling, it's meant to predict the risk and put patients in categories of various risk levels. And so we're pretty excited about that particular device. And then, of course, we've got a device for hip pathologies that's coming out, as well as core, which is more about gait analysis. So we think it's important. Orthopedics has lagged well behind other specialties in really adopting technology and using data, and so we feel it's vital to change that.
That's great. Also, same question to you on the regions that you're going after. Obviously, it's focused on knee to begin with, and with the implantable, you have a clearance in the tibial extension. Are you going to put that into a femur of a hip?
You could imagine that happening. I mean, we don't talk publicly about where we're going next with the smart implants, but I can tell you right from the core foundational product in my mobility, we support all the care pathways that are representative in orthopedics, right? So we have all the sports care pathways. So today we're collecting data on that. We're over-indexed on knees and hips because Zimmer Biomet is right a knee and hip company, and we have obviously all the sports care pathways, and anywhere we think robotic procedures will go, will follow, right? That's a place where, again, a very fertile ground for data collection and potential insight, I think is.
And then I noticed the stats you had, and you also sound like you have pretty good results on the feeling of a patient with this. It seems to be a highly recommended procedure, or not complement to a procedure would be a better way to describe this, that they're applying the technology to help them recover. So overall, they like the knee, but do they also like the tracking and the help they're getting from you?
They do. I mean, I think the overwhelming feedback we get, we put surveys in the tool, we get overwhelming positive feedback. I think it's intuitive, right? That this population that gets knees and hips today, they have a digital life outside of healthcare. They have a digital life, right? They're used to ordering an Uber and ordering their food on an app. We live digitally today, and when you enter into the healthcare system, it's surprising at how far behind it is. So when you give them technology that meets them where they are, they're delighted by that. So I think that part has been really good. But I agree with Colleen that the only way that we data collect on patients is we have to add value, right? They're not doing it for our benefit, for the benefit of the provider. They're doing it for their own benefit. You have to give them something that they feel is of benefit to them.
No, absolutely. You also had some incredible scores in the 90s for patient feeling about the track patch knee. What are your thoughts on? Do you think you've nailed it? Do you think you've got to get to 100? Where you?
Well, I think we're going to continue to strive for improvements, through improving the technology and the software, making the devices even easier for patients to manage, providing, more different types of feedback. But I think, you got to get the surgeon excited about this too, so they'll really be your advocate with the patient. And I think that's another piece of the puzzle to get adoption and drive compliance.
Can I just say,
yeah, please.
To Colleen's point, I think that's spot on. I think we sometimes miss that mark, that for providers, surgeons, their care teams, they don't want 50 different dashboards to manage, right? They want an integrated system. I think that's what will happen over time, right? That we have to have an integrated system for them to manage their patients.
Yeah.
They're overwhelmed. It's a major dissatisfier with the nursing staff and physicians. There's just too much stuff. There's too much digital stuff. So we have to create really, really intuitive software that surgeons can find easy, nursing can find easy, and it has to be integrated.
No, it makes complete sense. Your outline and graphics were great around the ecosystem you're developing, how it all connects to each other. So I appreciate that visibility. I'll be going to the live stream and watching that again to catch all the pieces. What areas, besides robotics, what other areas are you looking at from a during surgery, an intraoperative perspective? I think I saw something about augmented reality on there. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. We just launched a product called Omni Suite, which is an intelligent OR, which uses cameras to start to monitor efficiencies, right? So we can use AI cameras in the operating room to start to improve clinical workflow, so we can understand when doors open, doors close, when wheels come in, wheels go out, anesthesia up, anesthesia down. We then automate the texting to the providers, let them know that anesthesia's up, surgeon can come in. Wheels go out, you can notify housekeeping. So it's an efficiency play, but it's also an ability for us to data collect there too, and then feed those insights back to the health systems. And then mixed reality, we're doing some work in mixed reality around remote assist. So we have this ability to have a surgeon, halfway around the world. We just did some cases in the Ukraine where we're helping trauma surgeons there with American trauma surgeons using mixed reality. So that's another data collection mechanism.
That's fantastic. I think this connection of all those parts is where we're all heading as an industry, and it's nice to see you guys are kind of charging ahead full speed. Colleen, How about yourself? Where else have you, obviously you partner with implant manufacturers.
We are.
Yep.
You know, we're not in the business of developing a surgical robot, right? We divested our implant business. We were a very, very small participant in that market, but we are actively working with some of the implant manufacturers that do have a desire to have track patch data integrated with a robot that is used intraoperatively. And maybe their own, patient engagement, at-home physical therapy types of platforms.
No, fantastic. That's, I feel like it's the connection between technology companies like yourself with the medical device companies. I think that's really where we have to have those things happen. Questions from the audience? Anyone have anything they'd like to ask the panel? All right.
Any chance you can use your data collection to eliminate bad patients? Like you said that at day 15 you can predict how they're going to walk at day 90. And so my question is, how about pre-op day 60? Can you tell me who's going to be a failure at pre-op day 15?
Not yet. I think that's really interesting. I think what we found, at least early on, so we have a surgeon in the Pacific Northwest who tells a story about, a patient who's come in to, his 6-week checkup and his knee's red and inflamed. He's an athletic guy, younger, I think he's 54-year-old male, and his leg is swollen and inflamed. And he's like, what are you doing? I mean, what happened? And they look back at the data, and it turns out that like postoperative day 10, he was doing like 8,000 steps. He was just moving too much. And it would have been nice for them to catch it at the time, but he came in at 6 weeks and his knee was all big and red and inflamed. But that surgeon now knows to check the data pretty frequently now, right? So that he can tell and hopefully get in front of that.
Yeah, I would say some of our surgeon users are, applying the devices to their patients pre-op, but typically it's about 2 weeks pre-op. There's a limit to how long patients are willing to wear these devices. But some of the, the trends they can see pre-op, they maybe had a very low activity level pre-op, so they can work with that patient to understand why that is. They can do some prehab and really see what the effect of that is on the patient's, activity levels. And they can also use different more conservative treatment methods. Maybe there's an injection that makes a big difference. So there's a lot of things you can do pre-op that might lead to a better result once the patient eventually has a surgery.
Fantastic. Anything else from the audience? Oh, there we go.
I have a lot of questions, sorry. This is for track patch. So how many degree of freedom does your sensors have?
Did you hear that?
Can
Can
you
you speak a little louder?
one more time?
How many degree of freedom does your sensors have?
Degrees of freedom.
So 9 degrees of freedom for ours.
So you said it's the same wearable for different joints?
It's a similar approach, definitely for the knee, as well as it will be for the sports med, ACL, and hip. Spine is still under development a bit, so can't really comment on that one.
Okay. So my next question is on the adhesive patch. So is there any skin peeling or skin sensitivity issues that you guys are facing?
So we've found very, very small percentage of patients that might have some type of allergy to an adhesive. We're using a medical grade adhesive, similar to a Band-Aid, really. So typically we don't see any adverse reaction.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes. While we're waiting for the next question, I had to wear one, but I had to do it in an area where I had a lot of hair. And if you have to shave that hair, you're constantly shaving over and over again. That was so unpleasant. But yeah, I never had any problem with the bandage from those kinds of things. But unfortunately, some areas you need to put it in areas where, men at least have a lot of chest hair. But,
My question is, I know you guys have been saying that you've been finding negative effects and like, hey, they're not moving.
Sorry.
Sorry.
yeah, no problem.
That you guys have found negative, like if they're not working out enough, that's a negative effect. Hey, we need to get them in, get them working more. Have you guys been able to pinpoint any positive effects and like coming up with the optimal PT or whatever to say, oh, we can shorten the recovery because of the positive effects that you guys are collecting?
Yeah, that's absolutely possible, and we're starting to build some insights to identify what are the best recovery curves, what seems to work best for a certain cohort of patient, right? What works for one may not work as well for another. So I think some of the pre-op info, whether someone comes in varus or valgus, and how a robot might be set up to kind of handle that, and then what the results are. I think there's a lot of interesting things we can do to identify the best treatments.
Yeah, I think what we've found is surgeons can view this as an efficiency tool, right? If you have a dashboard and you can look, not them, typically the PA or someone on their team, can see the patients that are doing just fine, right? Why see that patient at 6 weeks if you can message them in the tool? If their step count is great, pain levels are fantastic, they're doing their education, you can see they're complying with their exercises, why wouldn't you message them in the tool and just say, I hear you're doing great, keep up the great work, and it saves them, right? If you're at HSS in Midtown Manhattan or Upper East Side, you'd have to drive in, park, so that patient saves money, saves a copay, and the surgeon frees up a potential preoperative visit that he can schedule somebody for surgery.
Great question. Yeah, I think that's an important part of this is how do we improve the post-care of the patient and make it better for them. So that's an incredible insights you guys already have, both of your companies. Well, if that's all the question, is there one more? There is.
Get the lights just go.
Yeah.
Sorry, is this on still? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So I have a question about the smart implants in the knee. What kind of maintenance plan is that like? So, because when you look at a knee implant, you're looking at something that's going to last 10 or 15 years, but when you put batteries and sensors in it, there's more risk to go in and replace the battery. Oftentimes you just leave them like in the cardiac space or put a new one. What kind of maintenance do you have for that, or, plan for the patient?
Yeah, so there would be no maintenance on the sensors in the battery, so that if they, after 10 years, when they stop transmitting data and the patient lives on for another 20, we wouldn't data collect on those patients. The implant just doing what it's supposed to do, yet we wouldn't collect data on that patient, so there would be no maintenance on that.
I think we have time for one more question, going to this gentleman right here.
Understanding the clinical benefits of this, what's it been like from a payer perspective and trying to gain reimbursement for these technologies?
So I can speak to that. Our device itself does not have a reimbursement code, but there are remote physiological monitoring codes, and since we're measuring temperature at the wound site, our device qualifies for surgeons to use those codes in conjunction with the use of track patch. There's 4 separate codes that can be used both pre and post-op, and they've been around for a while, but they were not well understood. And so we've had an active program to really help surgeons understand those codes. The other thing we've done is we've optimized our software platform to provide the information, the detailed information that surgeons need to feel confident billing those codes. And the surgeons that use track patch are getting reimbursed from both CMS and private insurance for the use of those codes.
And nothing to add there. I think we're similar.
Great. Well, thank you.
And we want to thank you all for joining us. And we hope you have a great evening. So, Peter, thank you for moderating. Colleen and Rob Kroll, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you enjoy the rest of OMTech. It's just wonderful to see you all in person. And let's give our panel a round of applause that they deserve.